Hey guys, Stephen Beaugrand here from Pro Physique. Today what I want to talk about are some of the biggest mistakes I see when getting into a bodybuilding prep. Alright, so hey everybody, I hope you're all having a great week so far. And let's kind of talk a little bit about what's the idea, right? What is the idea behind some of the big mistakes and even talking about it? Well, obviously the idea is that hopefully in talking about these mistakes that we make when we're going into a bodybuilding prep, we no longer have to make them. So some of the biggest bodybuilding prep mistakes that I see. So no particular order here. I'm just gonna spout off at the mouth a little bit today. I think the first one, right, is the time, the amount of time that it takes. So competitors who have done this before and have been doing this for a little while, they get it a little bit more. But people who are newer to the sport tend to make the mistake of not giving themselves enough time. And to be fair, I have seen a lot of competitors who have been doing this over and over again who continually make that same mistake of not giving themselves enough time to diet to get stage lean. So my first one is time. Understanding about what your stage weight is going to be. So say you had a stage weight before even and it wasn't lean enough, maybe we need to be 5 or 10 pounds leaner, right? So giving yourself enough time to not only diet down to that old stage weight, but enough time to also diet down to the next projected stage weight that we're going to want, okay? So keep in mind that, you know, if you're losing roughly 1% of your body weight a week, that's a pretty nice, slow, steady rate. We're gonna hold on to a lot of good muscle that way. So plan accordingly, right? Plan accordingly. You don't wanna have to lose 40, 50 pounds for a bodybuilding prep. That becomes very, very difficult and it becomes a very, very long diet. Now, you can still take a longer time dieting down off less weight, but remember, the longer that we take, from my experience, what I've seen is the easier that prep ends up being because we're on higher calories longer and the more muscle we retain. And not only do we retain more muscle, but in retaining more muscle, we bring a better package. We become more competitive on stage with that as well. So does everybody need a 20-week prep or a 24-week prep? No, absolutely not. But I continually see a lot of people getting into 12-week preps that would be better off with a 16, 20, or in many cases, even a 24-week prep. So make sure that you are giving yourself enough time based on your current body composition and what you think you might need to be at in terms of being on stage. If you don't know, get some opinions and advice from some experienced coaches that are going to be able to help you know. That way, and a coach should be asking you sort of what kind of competition date you're looking at and talking those, important details over with you. So first one, time. Second one, strength. A lot of people think that they're going to maintain strength or that they're going to be able to keep pushing the same weights that they've been pushing. Now, I know that I've done a meet in prep and I know that I still lift heavy in prep. I do that for a reason, to maintain as much strength as possible. That being said, I still lose strength. I still have really shitty workouts during prep. So one of the big mistakes I see people make is that they get hurt. The way that you get hurt during prep is by not listening to your body. Now, we can have a plan, and a training program is simply that. It's a plan. It's a framework for what I would like to see you do during that next block. However, that does not mean that it is always going to go exactly as planned, especially when we're dieting, and especially when we start getting really lean. So, when you are dieting, when you are prepping, when you are getting ready for stage, being open to understanding that we might need to change the plan, we might need to drop some numbers, we might need to accept that we're not going to be getting stronger during this period of time, right? These are normal things that happen during prep. However, when we're working hard, we're doing a lot of cardio, we're not eating a lot of calories, all these things are going on, it can be one of those things that if we're not mentally prepared for it, it can be difficult to deal with. And I think that this leads me well into the next part, right? Where's one of the really, really big points where people, I think, it's a big mistake, is they look at prep as if it's just physical, right? So they look at prep as all it is all I have to do is eat less and sort of, do some more cardio and exercise, whatever, and I get super shredded and lean. But prep is not all physical. In fact, your mental and emotional approach to prep are pivotal in your success from my experience. Here's why. Cortisol is a stress response, right? Stress, not only do we have physical stress, so when you go to the gym and you lift weights, you put stress on your body, right? So we have physical stress. It is what makes us better. It is what forces our body to adapt and get stronger, to put on more muscle, and to make progress in the sport, right? However, we also have emotional stress. We also have work stress. We have stress from the kids. I don't have kids, but I have a dog, right? Maybe he's stressing me out. Maybe he's sick or something's going on with him, right? So we have all these other stressors in terms of life that we have to manage as well. Because stress response includes cortisol, systemic inflammation, and a whole slew of other things. So if we don't understand that when we start prep, we need to be ready to manage our stress, our sleep, right? Our things that also influence stress, our recovery, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. Especially given that, like, a lot of the times what we see is we get really cranky too, right? So we get stressed out, we're cranky, we don't know how to deal with it or manage it, right? It's now putting extra stress on our personal life, on our work life, on all these other things. So when we don't appreciate the emotional and psychological aspects that we have to manage being involved with prep, that makes things really, really difficult and sets us up to be in a bad place. Because when everything just starts building up and building up and building up, you know, if you're just barely above water as it is, that puts us in a bad place to be long term. And it puts us in a bad place in terms of being successful, because we want to set you up for success as much as possible. So that doesn't just mean saying, hey, we're going to cut calories this week, or hey, we're going to increase cardio this week because I want us to be a little bit leaner. It also means understanding that if you're having a lot of issues and you're not really hitting your macros, well, what's the point of me asking you to hit less macros if you're not already hitting the ones I'm asking you to, right? So we want to have realistic goals and expectations, and we want to manage our personal feelings and our own psychological health accordingly. Another big thing that I see, and from my experience, I work with a lot of people who have histories of eating disorders, is that psychologically that eating disorder past comes back to bite us in the ass. And it's something I try to be very, very cognizant of and aware of, and to manage without actually ever saying that we're managing it. But if you've had an eating disorder, it is something you need to be very, very aware of, that you're not allowing those old body image dysmorphia issues that are causing eating disorders to come back in, right? Especially if you want to be successful long-term in this sport, because stage lean is a place where people with that body dysmorphia, you know, they can really like to be there and stay there for a long time. And that's just not a healthy place to be. It's not a good place to put on muscle. It's not a good place to live your life. We want to have balance, right? So understand that going into the show, you might do very well. You might bring in a really good conditioning, but if we're not paying attention to those psychological and emotional aspects coming out of the show, we can set ourselves up to be in a really bad spot in terms of succumbing into that body dysmorphia and possibly eating disordered past reoccurring and coming back up. So we want to be very, very aware of that as well, because that's the last thing we want to do, is to get back underneath something we have made progress and we've overcome for something like a bodybuilding show. So you know, that is one of the other ones. So the other, and I guess I'll leave it here as the last thing that I think is probably one of the biggest mistakes, is failure to plan. Failure to plan during prep. Prep becomes very overbearing, right? Especially when calories are low, you're hungry, we're working hard. If we have to do a lot of cardio, not everybody has to do a ton of cardio, but from my experience, the majority of people are going to be doing a decent amount of cardio a week, as well as eating reasonably low calorie. So we want to make sure that we set ourselves up for success. There are not a ton of really macro-friendly, like super low-calorie prep food options out there, especially if we're eating out or on the go. So we want to make sure that we're prepared beforehand if we have to take a trip, or be out of our normal element where we're no longer in control, right? We want to do everything we can to be as in control of that as possible, because that improves our consistency, which will improve our results. So try and keep it semi-short, guys, but those are some of the big prep mistakes that I see individuals make, and some of the things I think that you should definitely keep an eye out for. So as prep season is in full swing right now and competitions are going, and we get closer to the end of the year and everything wrapping up, I feel like this is a good thing to discuss. So hopefully it helps you guys out a little bit. But I'll leave it there and talk to you soon.